So good morning, everyone. I want to thank everybody for logging in. I appreciate you giving us some time. We know how busy everyone can be. This is Mark Smerschel with BeneFLEX HR Resources, and I am going to spend some time today talking to ACA reporting. So let's dive in there. We have been in business, like I had said, for 22 years. I've been at BeneFLEX for 15 of those years, and during that time I've seen a lot of exciting changes in this pre-tax arena with guidance that comes down. Back in 2010, BeneFLEX lobbied very strongly against the ACA when it was being introduced because they were proposing the elimination of the FSA. BeneFLEX launched and helped to promote the Save My FSA campaign, and we were successful along with a number of other TPAs and businesses like yourself that came together to save the FSA. We lobbied for the carryover for many years, and it's been rewarding because that has become the fruition, and now we're seeing good growth in the FSA with the carryover in place. And currently, we've been lobbying against the ACA, specifically the Cadillac tax, and we are looking to get a carve-out of employee contributions for FSA and HSAs. Why is that important? Well, with the Cadillac tax, employers are penalized if the benefit plan is too rich, and when you take the employee's contributions to the FSA and HSA and add that to the value of the employer's plan, well, that's going to cause a problem. So we're lobbying very heavily right now to try and get that removed. But as I had said, the ACA legislation is extremely exciting, but it's also extremely confusing. We have received so many calls from employers, TPAs, banks, other companies that are reaching out to us and our accounting firm asking for direction. And what this does is it creates an opportunity. And every plan or business that BeneFLEX brings forward is driven by the need for everyone that's out there on this call. So there was a need for help with ACA reporting, and last year BeneFLEX started to work on that with Smerschel. And our advantage was going into this, one, we had our own accounting firm as a part of our business, but two, we work with insurance brokers very closely. So we had existing clients that were talking with their brokers and they saw a need for assistance, and what we did is we took a controlled group of clients that had in-house payroll, and BeneFLEX and our sister company Smerschel created the documents for the reporting and also did the reporting and filed the 1095-Cs. So this first year, I'm not going to try and candy coat it. We all felt some pain as we were going through learning curves because a year ago this wasn't even in place. And now here we are a year later, and BeneFLEX has a full service software available as a solution. And we want to talk to some of the needs that you're going to see as you're going through this process. So I looked out online and found that the International Federation of Employee Benefit Providers had done a survey that most companies say the administrative burdens that were posed by the healthcare reform law was their biggest issue. 57% of the businesses said administratively it was a nightmare to handle. Cost issues were at 21%. Many employers were surprised at the resources and hence the cost that was associated with those to pull this together. Plan design at 11%. Plans weren't created for this because, as I said a year ago, this wasn't even in play. And then communication issues, trying to get the information from different departments or different softwares because it was housed in different locations. And then that last 1%, that's everybody saying, how do you class codes for questions 15, 16, and 17. So that survey matched up very closely to the pain points that were shared with us as we were working with employers and trying to assist those that called us. BeneFLEX found the information needed for reporting resided across employers' multiple tracking or software systems. The HRIS and the payroll systems don't have all the required information. There were coordination problems between multiple departments to get the data, and getting the data out of the system was even more complicated. Organizations had not been gathering all the data needed for ACA compliance because it wasn't needed before. And gathering the data is administratively intensive, and employers really have to dedicate resources, time, and a lot of energy to completing the forms. And employers were not prepared. You know, we were surprised too. I'm just trying to share with you that the challenge to track employees and having a tracking system in place to determine whether employees are entitled to benefits at the end of a measurement period was something that was brand new to a number of employers. In addition, data accuracy. That was the biggest headache, I believe, across the board, because when you're talking about data accuracy issues, you touch on leave data, hourly tracking, dependent information, multiple EINs matching with company name, acquisitions and mergers, inaccurate social security numbers matching to employees, missing termination dates and rehire date information, and inaccurate tracking of breaks in service. Things that are normally a challenge for many groups, but not only did it become more of a challenge when it had to be reported, it was on a time-sensitive basis. So there was data accuracy issues across the board, and we've all learned a lot from this first year, and we're going to go into the second year with our eyes open. The accounting firm helped us with the e-filing. That was a part of the process. IRS transmission issues, though, the correction process is even still ongoing because SOCIAs and TINs are being rejected 7 to 10% of the time. Since this was new for everyone, a problem was the resources for compliance and budget for compliance. Companies didn't realize what was going to be entailed to pull this together, and sometimes it was a bit of a battle, or it took a couple of long discussions to help senior management support the idea that they needed to bring in IT and the CFO's support to make this all come together. So what's different for the second year of this process? There are some things that we learned the first year, but we have some concerns or things we've been watching out for here at BeneFLEX for year two. And we know that there's changes with the employer mandate because the pay or play penalties are indexed, and for 2016, the penalties are increasing. Now, when you look at union employees, the good news on the coding is there's not going to be any changes. So coding for union employees for line 14 and 16 on the 1095-C form is going to remain 1H and 2E. Same-sex marriages, there's no impact on ACA reporting, only on benefit offering to the employees. Interns, no changes there. And the HRA, which is in our backyard, it's to be considered embedded with the health plan most commonly, so there's no need to report your HRA separately. That gets followed up with your qualifying offers of minimum essential coverage. Plans are going to do 95% of full-time employees, spouses, and dependents, and that's up from 70% last year. Affordability amendments reflect inflationary adjustments of 9.56 in 2015 and 9.66 for 2016. And I want to throw this out there early on in the presentation, because one of the most frequent questions that have come in is when people realize they need help, they're calling in and asking if we will do ACA reporting only, or does an employer have to have multiple services in order for us to also do their ACA reporting? And I want to tell you, we do standalone ACA reporting. I know some other TPAs and payroll companies won't let you do that unless you do a package with them, but we are very happy to work with you on this single project, and we hope that by meeting your needs, it'll lead us to do some more of your business as we go down the road. IRS requires insurers and large employers to file reporting forms in order to enforce the pay or play penalties. That's the whole reason we're talking about this now. The IRS is requiring large employers, 50 or more generally, and I always feel funny when I have to give a fact and say, well, generally, because there's so many twists or turns with ACA reporting and the rules, but employers of 50 or more have to pay or play. And of course, that's the IRS's way to force compliance. It's important to note that the $2,000 and $3,000 pay or play penalties are adjusted for inflation. For calendar year 2015, the 2,000 penalty is $2,080, and $3,000 penalty is $3,120. For calendar year 2016, the $2,000 penalty is $2,160, and the $3,000 penalty is $1,240. The ACA requires employers to provide certain forms to employees similar to the existing W-2 reporting requirements. It is important to be aware that the penalties apply separately to both requirements. So, for example, a failure to file a Form 1095-C with the IRS and a failure to furnish the same Form 1095-C to the employee is going to result in two penalties of $250 each, or $500 per affected employee. Remember, the IRS can assess $250 penalty per return for late, incomplete, or incorrect forms filed. Now, we all know the IRS granted relief for incomplete or incorrect returns for the first year if you were working in good faith effort, but it's not going to do so for the 2016 year and after. Now, that could change last minute, but up to this point, there is no relief that has been talked about or even suggested. Quicker deadlines. Last year we had a reprieve there, and there's no indication of an extension for the 2016 reporting deadlines. So for 2016 and later years, the 1095-Cs must be distributed to employees by the first business day on or after January 31st. The 1094-C and the 1095-Cs must be filed with the IRS, filing by mail by the first business day on or after February 28th. That's it, filing by mail. If you're filing electronically, by the first business day on or after March 31st. Now, these are hard deadlines. No extensions have been discussed or mentioned, and I need to tell you that if you're going to use BeneFLEX for 2016, we are only going to be offering e-filing to the IRS 100%. With our controlled groups that we had, that we did for last year, we gave them the option of mail or e-filing, and we found that the employers that did the e-filing were happier with the overall experience and felt it was more satisfactory and more efficient. So BeneFLEX is only going to offer e-filing to the IRS. If you need us to do mailings to the employees, we'll talk about those in just a little bit. We are doing that. And if you're thinking of doing your own e-filing, and I'm just going to base this comment off of last year's experience, if you haven't started that process to get certified for e-filing, you're probably late to the game, because last year it took many months and testing to get certified and set up to do e-filing. So the big question, should I outsource my ACA reporting? Of course, BeneFLEX is going to say, yeah, let's do that. But what I think we want to talk about is what's the cost of preparing your reports in-house versus paying for someone else to take on the headache. What should employers consider when comparing reporting options? And I put together some questions you need to ask yourself, because the number one challenge is getting the accurate forms, and that's with accurate coding and having it in the correct boxes. The second challenge you have to ask yourself is, do you have the ability with the firmer deadlines to submit timely transmissions? No forgive is in place this year. Number three, can you come up with the correct coding for lines 14, 15, and 16? And whoever would have thought that three little questions could make you scratch your head so much. If you're going to be outsourcing, you want to outsource to someone that you feel that provides excellent customer support and ACA reporting resources. And that's one of the reasons that we have our compliance group available to answer some questions at the end. We want you to feel extremely comfortable that not only do we have great customer support, but that we have the resources available to help you with handling the hard questions, because from our perspective, they are hard questions, but we're getting asked them over and over because we're going to be helping, and we are helping a number of employer groups. So an experienced professional can really put in a lot of time doing this themselves, trying to get other departments to help. And if you are outsourcing, you need to look at the cost, but you also need to look at the takeaway, because there's a lot of stress because of the complexities of tracking and calculating employee hours with ACA hour tracking. So we feel one of the major stress relievers is if you have a lot of variable employee hours, is that you can use us for that ACA tracking and the monitoring service to know when to offer benefits. Now, I had mentioned, I'm on number 6 now, that number 1 and 2 are the most important and challenging of the issues. So I want to tell you, BeneFLEX is assuming the liability for accuracy of the transmittal, that's number 1, to the IRS, and timing of the employee forms and accuracy of the information, which is number 2. Now, of course, BeneFLEX can't be held responsible for the data that your carrier or you might provide, but if we make the error, we are going to make it right. So that's an important thing to consider if you're looking to outsource to someone. Will they take that assumption of liability? And then finally, an experienced compliance team is going to be answering your questions and guiding you through the whole process when you work with BeneFLEX. And we're going to do our best to have minimal work involved on your part When I go to start talking about the software and how it works on your behalf to minimize your input, we're talking a great reduction in work if you've done this all yourself on your own spreadsheets. And I guess I should make sure that I mention there is a difference between outsourcing options that you have available. Make sure when you're talking with someone about outsourcing that you're talking to an ACA processor if you're looking for customer service and compliance support versus an ACA transactor who just sends the reports in but doesn't give you the help in terms of answers for how to fill it out and what to do. And I heard that came up quite a bit when working with payroll companies, that they told you you had to tell them those codes because they couldn't take that liability on. We will help you with those codes. So some more questions to ask yourself about ACA filing. And I think if you ask these questions to yourself, based on the answers, you're going to know if you need either annual reporting or month-to-month tracking to do your process. So one, how many employees are covered under the group health plan? When you ask yourself this question, it helps you determine the size of employer you are and in general your safe harbor codes that may be applicable. Two, are you fully insured or self-insured? It identifies if you have to obtain dependent information or not. So for example, I had talked about how our software was intuitive. When you are doing the answers as you're going along, if you were to check that you were self-insured, the dependent care information that's needed would pop up then in your workbook so that you know you need to do that. If you don't check the answer that says, if you check the answer that says you're fully insured, well then that doesn't even show. Again, we're being intuitive to have the questions there that you need to answer, and we're using your questions to let you know what you need to do as you go through the process. Number three, what is the employee portion of the premium monthly for the least expensive group health plan? That helps you determine what affordability safe harbor codes are applicable. Number four, what are the eligibility requirements for health benefits? First of the month following 60 days, as an example, helps you determine eligibility based on ACA requirements. Number five, who's eligible for health benefits? What class or groups of employees, full-time, part-time, management, admin? Those are the different examples of what you might have in those classes or groups. Do you have a union or union health benefits? If yes, what's the structure? Is it union plan or employer-paid health benefits for union employees? Define part-time employees. Some employers define part-time as over 30 hours, and others are less than 30 hours. You need to clarify part-time according to ACA. Do you have any variable hour employees? This is the one that seems to be a sticker for a lot of people because you want to define what this means to you. Compare the responses that you come up with to ACA requirements, and then if appropriate, discuss a measurement period, because there's a formula involved and a process for figuring out if you have variable hour employees. It's not uncommon that an employer will have variable hour employees that work less than 30 hours or 130 hours monthly, which qualifies as part-time and don't have to be considered variable hour employees. In other situations, the employer is tracking their variable hour employees internally, and they don't need any help from BeneFLEX doing that. They know when an offer of coverage should be made to their variable hour employees, and if they worked enough hours to qualify for that coverage. And if this is your case, you know, you don't need month-to-month tracking. If you came to us and shared that example, we would say annual reporting is a much better fit for you, and that's good because then that's less administration and it's less cost to get that done. And it's a much better option for employers if you are internally tracking those variable hours for health benefit eligibility. But many employers really aren't tracking those in-house hours. So some examples of employers, and these are just examples, who most commonly have employees with established hours that aren't very flexible, manufacturing jobs, intellectual industries like banking, finance, consulting, not-for-profit, service industries, etc. And then, you know, again with some exceptions, that annual reporting was the solution for that. But when you have another industry that's a lot of variable monthly changes going on, you're probably talking about temp service agencies, small retail businesses with high turnover, variable hour workers. A lot of times your small to mid-sized franchise operations have a lot of that flexibility and seasonality going on. So it's just important that you take the time up front to get a feel for where you fall. And every employer is different. An employee's work hour, the management does vary significantly. And the above references I made were, you know, for annual versus monthly tracking. Those are just, you know, generalizations. They're not a rule, but again, we're trying to help paint a picture. So, does your company need to comply? So this is BeneFLEX's gift to everybody who is on the webinar, because we're sharing with you our BeneFLEX ACA decision tree so you can know whether or not you need to comply with Section 6055 and 6056 reporting. Now, it's as boiled down as we could possibly make it and as simplified as you could hope it to be, and still be able to go through the process to determine where you fall if you need to or if you don't need to comply with those reporting rules. So I know it doesn't look simple, but believe me, the logic flows, and you can use this to get a decision on where you fall in terms of reporting needs for 6055 and 6056. So let's talk a little bit about the forms, the 1094C. In essence, what we're looking at here for a 1094, you know, this is kind of the employer cover page, if you want to think about it that way. And most employers are comfortable, you know, with this approach and with this format of what they have to answer, because it's very simple. Part one is basic employer demographics, and part two is some of the information about forms you're filing for your groups. On the next page, the 1095C, the second form, the difference between 1094 and 1095, as to get information for the reporting, you now have to go on the employee level. And this gets a little more difficult, requires more digging. Part one is, again, the basic employee demographics, name, address, etc. And part two is the coverage they were offered. Part three below is offered if a plan has self-insurance or is partially self-funded. Well, that's when those dependents come into play. So there's a lot more information that's needed there. But the approach with our software is, as you answer these questions, things will either show up or they won't show up depending on your answer. But more importantly, as you're putting things in, it will give you an answer on a box going down lower as you're filling in the options. So to dig a little deeper and to try and give you a better picture of each option, that's where we tend to get the most questions, is after people figure out the option that they fall into, they want to know, well, what's involved with doing that option and what are you going to do for me? So in reporting option 1, there's no need for a regular feed of data. You know, you're going to work with BeneFLEX, and we're going to do 2 Excel workbook uploads, and you're going to do one right away because we want to get your data in, and we want to start to audit it. We want to get as much data into the system as possible and audit it so that when it comes time to do your last year-end report, you're just making changes. You're making some corrections. You're adding some things. And that way you're not doing the entire process right at the end of the year. You've already gone through and we've caught some of the keying errors and things of that nature. As I have said, reporting option 1 is much simpler to do. And what the good news is 90% of the businesses fall into option 1. So that's a happy thing. Those are employers that have employees with more stable work hours. When you're working with BeneFLEX, you'll have real-time access to your workbook and to workbook training videos. So not only can you call us, but if you're one of the type of people that likes to understand the process and you like to sit down at night and look at it, we have training videos as a part of our service that allow you to see how the workbook needs to be filled in. There's flexibility. You're going to choose from a variety of outputs and reporting formats. And again, I want to make sure I always mention that we provide technical support as well as access to our compliance experts for complex ACA questions. So when you do that final workbook, there's a lot of things that are going to start to go into play. It completes the employer form 1094C. It batch completes the employee form 1095C. It's going to generate a summary report in Excel, so you have that for your records. You have the option of printing and mailing them yourselves to the employees' homes, or you can come to BeneFLEX and we will do that at an extra cost, but you choose what works best for you. And then e-filing, like I said, it's going to be 100% and happen automatically when you work with us this year. Some of the benefits of e-filing, when I said there was an overall feel that it was a better service, you know, any corrections when we e-file, if there's something that comes back, it's going to come to both of us. And that way we're both informed and can start to work on correcting a name and SOCH that didn't match up. You know, if for some reason an entire file is rejected, that means we both get notified up front and we can fix it and we can get it resent. On reporting option 2, that's the monthly data feed to track variable hours, work hours of the employees. Again, we're working off an Excel workbook, but it's going to have monthly uploads. And the employee data coverage that's going to go in, when you put that data in the first time, here's where another great assist comes in. I told you that the system is intuitive and helps to give you the right answers, but when you're using the tracking or the option 1 system, let's use option 1 as an example. There's 4,000 data fields that have to be entered. Using our system and with the software formulas and things we have in place, it's going to take that down to 300 data entries. We're working to make your life simpler by using the software complexity we built. Because we didn't build this system to be a payroll system. We didn't build this system to be HRIS. We built this solely for the purpose of doing ACA reporting. And that's the difference. What's the difference between us and a payroll company? They're using a payroll system to try and complete another process. We built this only for ACA reporting. Again, you're going to have real-time tracking and reporting, access to your data 24/7. You have online history archives of all the records. Again, the flexibility, choose from a variety of output and reporting formats, and the technical support and ACA compliance that's available from our compliance team. Automation, the exact same steps as before. We're going to make sure the 1094, the 1095s are taken care of. We're going to provide you with that summary report in Excel. Again, you can use us for the mailing of the forms home at an extra cost, and e-filing will be a part of that. And then the built-in logic and security. Both options help you determine correct indicator codes, assign correct plan effective dates, calculates the 70% and 90%, 95% offer thresholds, and it interprets safe harbors and transition relief designations. Phew, that was a lot. So to give you a summation of the entire process and boil it down to hopefully just 1 minute. On input, the employer, you give us information, and we put that in and help develop the classes by the information you give us, full-time, part-time, also depending on your structure. 2, upload. We take that information, upload it into our system, and let our system work for you and use our formulas to make sure everything is in compliance. If you're self-funded, it'll bring the dependent information forward. And 3, we generate the reports. At the end of the year, we take the second file or the 12th file if you're using the monthly option, and we e-file for you, and we generate the 1094Cs. So the 1094C, these are the forms that are going to be completed going out to the IRS and the employees for you. The 1094C, this is going to be sent to the IRS, completed and all filled out, and your headache is over. So I put in 2 slides to talk about the ACA reporting of who has what responsibilities, because we feel it's important that when you're looking at implementation, you know there's going to be a welcome letter and the instructions sent email and a call to get you loaded in as an administrative user in our system. We're going to provide system training either through the login page, or when you call in if you have questions, we will do training. Data collection, we provide support. You upload the spreadsheet. So there's a accountability of what is kind of expected, so you know what BeneFLEX will bring forward, and you as a client will know what BeneFLEX is looking for you to bring forward. The same thing is true for option 2. We broke it down and assigned accountability for all the different steps that are important and a part of this process. The client data intake, again, the welcome, the forms, completing the instructions, data collection, and it just follows on through all the way down to form generation and filing. So BeneFLEX wants you to feel very comfortable, and if you're a current employer using us, you know the amount of work that we put into our employee web portal and our employer web portal. We have that same consistency and thought process in the ACA reporting. You're going to come in and log in, and you're going to have the ability to obtain your workbooks. You will, after you fill out your setup sheet, they will be set up and ready for you to go in. You can watch the training videos. You know BeneFLEX is extremely concerned about HIPAA compliance and security, and you can securely upload your employee data. We have developed a template. A number of companies have said, how do I get a cost or a quote on doing this? We have a template filled out that we can forward to you, and that template allows us to help you assess if you're an option 1 or an option 2 reporting. As we said, 95% of people fall into that category, but we want to make sure that we help you understand what's the best reporting option for you. So when this is all said and done, the employees have their forms, the IRS has their reports e-filed to them, and then you get to look forward to the next year. But you have a much larger smile on your face because BeneFLEX took away a lot of those headaches. So at this time, I want to ask you to submit any questions that you would like our our compliance team to talk to. I do know that Dee handled all the questions last Tuesday with no problem, and so we're playing Stump Dee today. If you have a question that you want Dee to answer, we'll bring that forward. The first question asked if the slides will be sent out for the presentation, and of course those slides went out before the presentation, but if you missed them, you should have them, or on this page you also have the ability to click a link and print the slides yourself. So Dee, are you on the phone?
Yep.
Dee, are you there?
Yep,
oh,
I'm here.
Great. Great, Dee. Well, we wanted to give the people some time to ask some questions. I already took the first one asking about the slides. So this one says, good information, but since we have fewer than 50 full-time employees, ACA reporting won't apply to us in any way, correct?
Okay, are you fully insured or self-insured? And then are you
I would say they didn't answer that, but I would, what are the answers for each one?
Okay, so if you're fully in and not a part of an aggregate group, there is a calculation that you have to do. If you have less than 50 employees exactly and there's no other part-time employees, then no, you do not. But if you have a part-time workforce or variable workforce along with those full-time employees, you have to do the calculation. Self-insured under 50 have to report for sure.
And what if there's some common ownership, Dee? Let's say that they have a couple companies and each are under 50. Are there any rules that would tie them together and push them over the 50 mark?
Yes. If you have a common ownership of another entity and that brings you to leads you to be an ALE, a large, ethical large employer, then yes, you have to report.
Okay. We have one more question that's come in. And if you're out there listening, please remember you can still type in a question that you want. You go to the side of the screen and you expand it out, and you can submit your question. We do have a question from Kelly. She asked, Dee, can you explain the difference between fully insured and self-insured?
Okay, the easiest way to determine the fully insured means that your employees pay a portion of the insurance, and if there is a claim, then Blue Cross, United Health, they take full responsibility to pay those claims. Self-insured is your employees pay a portion of the benefit, or pay money to you as a company, and you take on the burden of the claim. So if somebody submits a claim, the company themselves pays that claim. So that's how I kind of make it simple. So if you are self-insured and you pay claims when an employee brings them to you, then you are self-insured. If someone else pays it, like Blue Cross or United Health, then you are fully insured. And fully insured employees do not have to submit dependent information, only the self-insured.
Okay. We have another question that says, do I have to complete a 1094C and a 1095C for our union employees who have a union-based health benefit?
They are a part of your total head count. So yes, because your total head count goes on your 1094C. The 1095Cs, as Mark explained earlier, will be the 1H, 2E, multi-employer. So that would be the coding that you would use for those. So you do report your union, even though you might not know what they pay or what, if they've accepted or not. But it's a 1H is a no offer of coverage from the actual company.
Okay, I will give one more second here. That's all so far, but let's see if something else comes in while I do a little housekeeping. Everybody, if you do have questions that you think of as soon as we hang up, which is always the case, please submit them. My email for the questions to come in is on the screen, info@beneflexhr.com. If you do need a quote or you want to ask questions on the services, Beverly, Judy, Roberta, Tressa, Jamie, and CJ can all help you to pull that together. Dee, we don't have any more questions, so I guess we just did a good job up front.
Perfect. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for calling in, and have a nice day.